I retired from hockey when I was 19. And actually, I started playing, I knew I wanted to play the cello at that point, and I started, that's when I took up the cello again. I'd had lessons for a year or so as a kid, but really took it up as an adult. And at the same time, it was the middle of the running boom in the 70s, in the mid 70s. And a good friend of mine at the time, who had also retired from hockey, we started running a little bit together. And I remember Nike came out with their first shoes then, and even though now there's a whole movement towards, no shoes or minimalist shoes, at the time having shoes enabled us to run, because even though I was a good hockey player, I wasn't a very good runner. It was clueless. There wasn't a lot of literature out there. We had no idea how to start. Well, we were always getting sore legs and no idea of how to do it. We just kind of stumbled our way, to being, eventually we were became marathoners, and I ended up running, in the 70s, I ended up running 5 marathons, along with a lot of other races at varying distances.
Yeah, I finished 5 marathons in 1978 at age 11.
Right.
Wrecked my knees.
Yeah. Well, I didn't wreck anything, but I hurt a lot of things, and I was always getting injured. So it was actually getting to the point where, I liked running, but I wasn't enjoying it anymore, and then I met a coach who talked about running form and talked about paying attention to how you were running, not just what you were doing, and said that in order to run well, you had to learn how to sprint. So he made us go from marathon training, which was really a kind of a fast shuffle, to learning how to sprint, which was more technical. And I got interested in running again.
How did the Alexander technique affect your running?
Well, it affected it because I had to become a conscious runner. My McDonald had told me that I could keep running during the training as long as I didn't tighten myself up. So I used to give myself directions a lot. I'm not sure, what kind of an effect they had, but I would be running along, telling my neck to release and my head to go forward and up, and, talking to myself a little bit, paying more attention to how I was running. And it seemed to reduce the number of injuries I had. I stopped getting injured. So that was, and I was figuring out how to run, how to train, because I wasn't, just a runner. I was actually training. I was competing. I was trying to, setting targets for myself and trying to improve on them. And the Alexander technique, I think, helped me, balance that, what we like to call, in the business, the end gaining side, this urge just to sort of achieve at any cost, and it helped me become a little bit more cautious in my approach, so that I kind of have developed a sense of when to back off a little bit on the training, or when to sort of say, okay, I think I need to, take it easy for a little while, rather than just sort of blindly pushing through training regimes, and then ending up sick or injured or burnt out,
What's your best distance?
Well, when you look at my times, I basically, there are ways of determining, if you're actually running to your potential at one distance based on a time at another. And if you look at my times from 800 meters right up through up to about the half marathon, I'm right on target. Where I've underperformed is at the marathon level. And I think it's because I never was able to sustain my training enough to sort of build up the mileage. But from 800 meters, 1,500 meters, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, all my times are basically, they're kind of in sync. So for example, you might have somebody who can run a 2-minute 800, and their time for 10,000 meters is 40 minutes. and and the two don't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can run a 200, if you can run a 2-minute 800, you should be running about a 32-minute, or 33-minute 10,000. So, but mine, when you look at my numbers, they pretty well follow all the way up. As I've gotten older, I just don't have the emotional whatever it takes to train for 800 meters anymore. So now I train for the half marathon. That's my key distance right now.
What's your fastest marathon time?
2:56.
Oh, you broke 3.
I broke 3, but based on my 10,000 time, I should be under 2:50. So
Yeah.
That hasn't happened. I actually think now I'm probably, I'm 50. What old am I now? 50, 56 or 57. No, I'll be 57 in June. That I could probably run a faster marathon now than I could when I was 30.
Wow.
But
ahead.
That's talk. You still have to walk the talk.
Yeah.
But I do pretty well. I can run a 1:20 half, and I'm hoping to go faster than that this year. So, and that would translate into sort of a low 2:50 marathon.
How did you become a running coach?
Oh well, I've always been since for quite a while I've always been a student of running. So I ran, but I read a lot about it, and I'd worked with this one coach here in Montreal, a guy by the name of Bernard Godbout, who had really started me thinking a lot about running technique and training programs and things like that. So I started reading more about that. And then when I was in England, I worked with a guy by the name of Frank Horwill, who he coached us, a group of us, and he used to talk a lot about coaching and theories and things like that, and it got me very interested in it. So when I came back to Montreal in the late 80s, I ended up talking with a friend who was coaching at McGill, and he invited me to be the assistant coach of the cross-country team and the track team as well. And so I started, at that point I'd been coaching a little bit in the UK. I'd been helping out some friends and that, sort of organizing workouts and things. And then at McGill I started, in a more sort of formalized position, doing some coaching. And then I eventually got some certification for that, and I became the head coach at Concordia University of the cross-country and track programs for 5 years. And during that time I got my level 4, which is a national level middle distance coaching certification. And then after that, so that was about 15 years of coaching, sort of formally, even though they didn't pay us very much. It was, I was the coach. And that takes a lot of time. And, once I sort of got married and had a family, it was slightly less interesting for me to spend every Saturday traveling to a track meet somewhere.
Yeah.
So since that time, I haven't done any. I've helped a few people individually, and I still am doing that. But I'm not coaching so much. I do running workshops now, and I work with people more on developing awareness and applying the Alexander technique to their running, so that they run with better technique and they run with more awareness, and they're able to improve their running, either in terms of performance or just in terms of injury prevention and enjoyment.
How did you come to produce the book, The Art of Running?
That was boy, oh boy. That was 7 years of procrastination. And then I met Andrew Shields, who's the former editor of Sports and Leisure for Time Out magazine in London. And he agreed to help edit the book, and he even knew a publisher. Actually, it's the same person who published Stephen Shaw's Art of Swimming. And once he and I agreed to work together, he would basically